It's not much of a stretch to say the world of entertainment has gotten monotonous and frustrating. Between Hollywood rehashes, cash grab economics, microtransactions, algorithm-pleasing content, short-form content, heavy-handed political messaging, an oversaturated market, overly safe ideas, disregard, and desperation, media in general has been feeling hollow. In this video, we'll look at the state of different forms of entertainment, what's going right, what's going wrong, and why it matters. Storytelling has served as a cultural cornerstone for the entirety of recorded history and beyond. From cave drawings to cinema, humans have always had a hankering to tell stories and to hear, read, or watch them. Good stories act as more than just a way to pass the time. They give us a look into others' behavior and can expose us to different cultures and worldviews. They can be sources of inspiration. The best stories give us something to think about. And what's far worse than a laughably terrible story is a forgettable one. The mind loves to see cause and effect in action. This ranges from coherent plot points in movies to responsive controls and environments in video games, and even aspects of social media like getting a notification when someone replies to you, all of which tie into the world of entertainment. If a character does or says something, we enjoy seeing that action have some sort of consequence or impact. Gabe Newell recently talked about this.
And you'd have these conversations where you'd be sitting in a design review and somebody'd say, "That's not realistic." And you're like, okay, what does that have to, explain to me why that's interesting, because in the real world, I have to write up lists of stuff I have to go to the grocery store to buy. And I've never thought to myself that realism is fun. I go play games to have fun. And so we had to come up with some notion of what fun was. We knew it was an ad hoc definition, and it was the degrees to which the game recognizes and responded to the player's choices and actions, right? If I go up to a wall and shoot it, to me, it feels like the wall is ignoring me. I'm getting a narcissistic injury when the world is ignoring me. So does this, to me, I was trying to convey to the user a sense of, yes, you were making choices, yes, you were progressing, which meant the game had to acknowledge that back to you. If you shoot at a wall, there have to be decals. You have to have this sense of the game acknowledging and responding to the choices and actions and progressions that you've made. Otherwise, it loses any sort of impact.
While he's obviously talking about video games, I think this notion extends to most, if not all, forms of entertainment. Even in a realistic show like The Wire, they're not going to show the entire duration of a car ride just to prove that's how a character got from point A to point B. Characters' expressions may be exaggerated to emphasize intent or emotion. Scenes are perfectly orchestrated to give us a better impression of certain characters in a short amount of time. None of this is for the sake of realism, but for watchability and good storytelling. It's to trim the fat and focus on what matters, characters' actions. Dialogue is important too, although speaking is a form of action which can cause things to happen in a story. Characters can be as poetic or witty as can be through dialogue, but it doesn't have any weight if it's taking place in a world where there are no stakes and nothing interesting is happening. Comedy has more room to subvert these conventions. Misdirection is key in much of comedy. This doesn't mean that storytelling should be outright ignored in comedy though, otherwise we get something akin to the very worst of Amy Schumer's material. No matter the medium, good entertainment highlights actions and consequences, realistic or not. After all, how would a story have an impact on the audience if the characters aren't capable of impacting the world around them? The question of what will happen next is what keeps us intrigued. It should be said that writing a fresh, compelling story is difficult, even more so to turn it into a solid piece of media of any kind. This has always been the case, and with how omnipresent entertainment is today, there are new and unique challenges. The sheer amount of media to consume as well as the accessibility of social media make it harder to listen to your own voice, to focus on your own vision instead of others. It's easier to look at the potential market success of a film rather than its artistic merit. It's easier to focus on what's objective rather than what's subjective, which is a painfully cold and unimaginative way of approaching an art form. Bold ideas are toned down and tuned out in favor of making safe business decisions. Why try something new when a previous success can be replicated? This mix of laziness and creative bankruptcy sucks the poetic, charming, and daring qualities out of storytelling. I'm not saying this as a way to point the finger or assign blame to anyone in particular. It's just the reality of the modern entertainment industry. Not only is there less inspiration inspiration to be found in the world of media, it's also more difficult to pitch innovation and risk to the industry. With how expensive it's gotten to make big-budget movies and AAA games, studios are increasingly reluctant to bet on ingenuity. It seems that it's been forgotten that limitation breeds creativity. These massive projects can use all of the money in the world, but if there's no clear vision to execute, if the process and the product are merely means to an end, then it means nothing. Unfortunately, the problem of redundancy in media doesn't start and end at the studio. It's not uncommon for social media algorithms to be used as a misunderstood scapegoat. However, they do have an impact, although vague and difficult to fully recognize. Content algorithms are designed to show individual users what they are most likely to click on, watch the longest, and engage with via likes, comments, etc. This is made possible with the user's data, specifically what kind of content they've watched before. So if you want to appeal to an audience, you need to appeal to the algorithm as well. This is true for both content creators and advertisers. A great example of this new priority in action is the content success meta on YouTube, content about making content that gets more views. Some of these videos do have some good information about making it as a creator, but the existence of this meta in itself makes the process seem methodical and mathematic. There is merit to this approach, although I can't help but feel that this prevailing attitude contributes to the lack of color so commonly found on YouTube. On the viewer's side, algorithms provide content that they're likely to spend more time with, but that's not necessarily a metric for how enjoyable of an experience they're having. Similar to modern-day Hollywood, content algorithms aren't designed to take risks. They're designed for a safe approach to maintaining viewership. Financial guru Grant Cardone has talked about making $1 million in 90 days a number of times. Enter Gareth Amon Media.
Hi, I'm Gareth Amon, and I've decided to do the Grant Cardone $0 to $1 million business in 90 days. Okay, so this is day one for me, September 1st. Day two of the 90-day challenge to $1 million from Grant Cardone. I've been thinking a lot. It's day two. I got no money, I got no contacts, and I got no ideas. Okay, it's day three on my challenge to start a business. Okay, day four, day 8, day 12. What we're going to do today is, well, I probably should, call a therapist or a counselor. It is day 16 on my challenge to go from $0 to $1 million in 90 days. Okay, day 29 of my challenge to go from $0 to $1 million in 90 days. Okay, I've got to make decisions. I got to get this thing going. If I don't, I'm going to fail. I'm going to start a sandwich business. Back in 99, I was selling sandwiches out of the back of my car. Now, let me tell you, on day 90, I'm going to buy a wheelbarrow and I'm going to fill it up with all the money that I've made by selling peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. I feel like I'm about to jump into the ring in a heavyweight boxing match with a grilled cheese sandwich. Now, let me tell you, I've been working hard. I've been doing my weights. I've been training. I've been getting up early, getting ahead of the competition. But that's just not going to be enough. I'm going to need people behind me. I'm going to need people who want to join the peanut butter and jelly sandwich team. Things are going great. I'm in the people business. Now, let me tell you, things are going great, okay? Now, let me tell you, things are going great. And things are going great. Now, things are going great. To go from $0 to $1 million in 90 days. It's day 72. It's day 86. It's day 87. Things are going great. Everybody is asking me how much money I have made so far. Well, I'm still at 0, but that's okay because anything can happen in these next 2 days. It's day 135 of my challenge to go from $0 to $1 million in 90 days. I took a 45-day break of making videos, but I've been still on the trail every single day trying to make it happen. Now, let me tell you something. I'm believing in you that you were on your trail as well, metaphorically speaking. Whatever path in life you're on, I know you're doing great. So continue on with that. But it's time to get back to work.
Now this is content. It's unique, it's captivating, it's innovative, it's fun. You can learn how to start a business and grow it. You can even buy a diamond-encrusted peanut butter and jelly sandwich for the low price of $300,000. Achieve your highest potential. What a treasure trove of knowledge, something that a lot of people are missing out on. Honestly, I am lucky the algorithm showed this to me, and it's probably because I sometimes click on videos with lower view counts. This leaves me wondering, on your own YouTube homepage, what's the least viewed video that gets shown to you? It's probably difficult to find something with less than 10k views. I enjoy seeing the wackier, less trend-hungry YouTubers out there experimenting with new ideas. Unfortunately, they're not often rewarded for their efforts. Because there's roughly 30,000 hours of new content being uploaded to YouTube every hour, it's understandable that YouTube's algorithm would push videos that are getting views. That, and the algorithm uses data obtained from views to know who else to recommend the content to. If no one watches it, the algorithm isn't able to identify a demographic for that video. This is understandable, yet unfortunate. Another unfortunate reality in the world of media is the prevalence of politics. Political messaging in media is nothing new, but it's gotten worse, especially in the last decade or so. The tension caused by the 2016 election, the 2020 election, and the pandemic was made worse by the constant partisan reporting and increasing number of grifters. The amount of division in America has been in constant flux, and we've been peaking for quite some time. This has affected the entertainment industry. To be honest, I haven't gone to see any movies lately, and that's partly due to the constant political discourse surrounding cinema these days. It feels like it's more common for me to hear about a movie through some sort of political argument than the movie's actual marketing. Even for something like the Super Mario Bros. Movie, the discussion surrounding the film was largely about whether the movie is woke or anti-woke.
$377 million on a $100 million budget.
Nice.
And let's...
Not only is there the film industry and film critique, there's also an industry that looks to weaponize popular entertainment as a means to fight the culture war. The people making movies aren't the only ones responsible for the film industry being overly political. Journalists and pundits are also part of the problem. You can make the discussion around any film political if you really want to, just as you can speculate what any movie would taste like if it were a food dish. Both of these conversations usually have about the same amount of value. I'll go as far as to say that it can be a fun thought exercise, but it shouldn't be taken to heart. We live in strange times, so people want answers. We look for some hint of purpose or direction in the stories and culture around us. The thing is, endlessly speculating the intentions behind the Marvels isn't going to solve problems with foreign policy or the economy, and some people do treat it as being that dire. Political discussion and debate are prominent forms of entertainment themselves. The amount of pressure and hostility surrounding this kind of media can't be healthy. I don't think the human brain is built to be constantly badgered and distracted by divisive nonsense. The push to get people as emotionally invested in politics as possible is tiresome and nauseating. It's everywhere. The more people are tricked into thinking this discourse is somehow meaningful, the more profitable and popular it becomes. This illusion is exhausting and becoming more transparent. Considering what you're going to watch should not be some moral trial of your beliefs and character. No, I'm not a racist just because I didn't want to go see The New Little Mermaid, and I'm not anti-American just because I didn't see The Sound of Freedom. I don't care about what JonTron said a decade ago. I'm still going to watch him. On top of the growing political concerns in media, there's the matter of nudity and suggestive content. There's contrast between a tasteful instance of nudity in a film, the adult entertainment industry, and the kind of stuff we see on Twitch and OF. In a good movie or show that uses nudity, the context keeps it from feeling ham-fisted and it's not the primary focus. And then there's the internet. The internet makes adult content easily accessible to children. Since many boys consume explicit material before entering puberty, they can have a very materialistic, non-romantic, and colorless impression of love and relationships before those things even start to matter to them. They don't learn how to talk to women, just to objectify them and beg for pleasure, a very unattractive way of approaching romantic interest. This, of course, leads to frustration, both from men and women. Women are left wondering, where are all of the good men? And men are left wondering, why am I incapable of being loved? This leads to greater insecurity and separates us even further. The problem is that in our our culture, there is far too much emphasis on fucking and not enough focus on romance, the chase. There is a great lack of patience which leads us to push the other person away. I believe the new prevalence and accessibility of adult entertainment is partly to blame for this. The magic of romance is stripped away in favor of instant gratification. I suppose that's the point.
What a stupid scene. There's literally no reason for them to be nude on this beach. There's none at all. They could easily have dried their clothes with them on their bodies.
Now for something in media which I think is going right, criticism. The first time I really acknowledged critique as a form of entertainment was when I first watched The Angry Video Game Nerd. The crude humor and intense rants were definitely a part of the draw for me as a teenager, but it was the criticisms of a familiar medium that grabbed and maintained my attention. Whatever your perspective of AVGN is now, you can't deny that he's had an immense impact on YouTube that is still felt today, an impact which I see as a positive one. Because video game studios and filmmakers seem to be more out of touch than ever, there's great fun to be had in making a mockery out of the worst parts of those industries. Failures in media are interesting themselves when looked at through a critical lens. It can be more compelling to learn why something is infamous rather than to learn why something is a success. While some may write off critique in general by saying something like everyone's a critic or everyone has an opinion, that's why it's so fascinating. We're naturally judgmental creatures, we all relate in that way. Given the other problems in modern media, it's a good time to be a critic. Not too long ago, I made a video called Why Everyone Hates Streamers. While I stand by the points I made, I didn't spend hardly any time talking about the better parts of the streaming world. For example, a streamer who I appreciate is SimpleFlips. He's crazy talented at Mario Maker, Mario 64, and other games. Sometimes he has ROM hack competitions for Mario 64, with many people submitting hacks of the game fitting the theme of the competition. It's cool to see a community get more creatively involved with the video game they love, perhaps even learning a thing or two about software along the way.
50 hours were spent learning how to use ROM Manager and Blender. Dude, 50 hours into this project? You're amazing. Thank you for joining. That's what I'm talking about.
SimpleFlips seems like a wholesome guy, and to play through some of the ROM hacks and Mario Maker levels that he does must take a heroic level of patience and persistence. Another thing I didn't talk about is the difference between a stream and a live show. A typical stream would be something like Asmongold reacting to videos. He may start the stream with a loose idea of what he's going to do, but it's usually not much more than reacting to whatever is popular on his subreddit, on Twitter, or in the gaming world. A live show has more production quality, effort, and planning behind it, something more like a live podcast, I guess. Something with a bit more showmanship. As much as I hate to say it, a good example of this would be the H3 podcast. I'm no fan of Ethan Klein, and I've been critical of him on a few occasions, but there is a night and day difference between the H3 podcast and, let's say, Hassan Piker's stream. Funny because those two had a live political podcast together, Leftovers. The last episode aired a few months back, with the tension between the two causing the show to end. I'm not going to get into all of the details on that, because it would take a while, but I'd say that Ethan Klein came off as far more professional than Hassan Piker by the time things were said and done. Even though H3 isn't my cup of tea at all, I can at least acknowledge that he puts more care and effort into entertainment than a lot of streamers, although that's not too hard of a bar to clear. In the spirit of short-form content, I'll keep this section short. Short-form content is cancer. God help us all.
Yes, 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 yes. But amazing. Crunchy corn, yum!
Regarding video games, there's some good and some bad. The state of AAA game development is looking rough for the most part. While there are some big studios like From Software that are still able to put out some masterfully crafted games, companies that once had solid reputations like Bethesda and Blizzard, which are now owned by Microsoft, are struggling to put out anything meaningful. Bethesda's newest game, Starfield, sold lots of copies with its marketing hype, but reception was mixed at best and the player base has already withered away. The Bethesda formula is showing its age. There are plenty of open world games which came out before Starfield that are crushing its current player count. Some of these games are just old Bethesda titles, like Skyrim. It's not a good sign when a company spends 8+ years developing and marketing a new game, and the people who just bought it would rather play a game that the same company released over a decade ago. AAA games have a common problem. They try to over-deliver without a clear, cohesive vision. Due to smaller budgets, indie developers don't have this problem nearly as often. Take a game game like Hollow Knight. It doesn't reinvent the wheel. It uses the Metroidvania formula which was established 25 or 30 years ago. It uses a currency and healing system similar to the ones found in Dark Souls. But there was a great deal of passion that went into the artwork, the soundtrack, the boss fights, the level design, and the atmosphere. The game didn't seek out to do everything, but it does what it does well. The scope of what the developers intended to achieve with Hollow Knight was within their capabilities, and they made a great product. Hollow Knight will be remembered fondly for quite some time, and that shows in the amount of anticipation for the sequel, Silksong. Starfield, on the other hand, hyped itself up to be a gaming gift from the heavens and wasn't even able to meet the standards Bethesda themselves set over a decade ago. Hype sells, but it can't make a bad game good. A wise man once said, "If it's not fun, why bother?"
If it's not fun, why bother?
The studios which continue to prioritize marketing and monetization over fun will keep hurting their own reputation. Something like Super Mario Bros. Wonder proves that you don't need to promise the world in order to make a game that is loved. Games that are made with a confident, focused vision will always be better than games that are made specifically for mass appeal. From Software is the perfect example of that. Demon's Souls was released in 2009, which had elements of their Kingsfield series which started in 1994. Dark Souls was released in 2011 with a sequel following it in 2014 and Dark Souls 3 coming out in 2016, not to mention Bloodborne. By this time, Dark Souls was immensely popular, and for good reason. They hadn't been making any massive changes to the Dark Souls formula, just adding things on top of it and tweaking things here and there. Decades worth of game design optimization. The process for making these games was so refined that they essentially made and popularized a new subgenre, and then Elden Ring released in 2022, cementing From Software as an absolute titan of the industry. They have a confident, focused vision for the kind of games they make, and it shows. Unfortunately, companies like From Software are rare, not just in gaming, but the entertainment industry at large. Although this environment is hyper-competitive, it often rewards safety and conformity. Financially speaking, it's better to make an inoffensive movie that makes money yet isn't remembered than it is to take a risk and flop. In terms of leaving a legacy, however, the opposite is true. The best stories give us something to think about, and what's far worse than a laughably terrible story is a forgettable one. It is possible to market mediocrity. By the time we're willing to admit a product didn't live up to our expectations, we've already bought it and the people who made it are moving on to the next thing. This may hurt their reputation, but with some PR management and the rat race nature of modern media, people forget. After all, mediocrity is forgettable. The Room will be remembered for much longer than the Sonic movie. It's more fascinating because it falls so far outside the norm. The Room invites discussion, judgment, and ridicule. The Sonic movie politely asks for your attention for the duration of the film and nothing more. Sure, one of these movies made a lot more money, but the other has achieved a legendary status. How much modern media will be remembered as legendary? What kind of impact will the gray, inoffensive disappointments of today have on our culture? There's no clear answer to these questions yet, but it's something to think about. Where could things be headed? Paradoxically, the world of entertainment is currently both chaotic and stagnant. Given all of the different forms of entertainment, the evolution of the internet, and overall uncertainty, it's hard to say what to expect. I believe cynicism and hostility will grow for a bit longer until we reach some kind of cultural flashpoint. What exactly that may entail is anyone's guess. In the tech world, the term disruption is used to describe a new product that could potentially change or outright replace a certain part of the market. I think the current media landscape is ripe for a similar, productive kind of disruption. I am cynical yet optimistic about where things are headed. As the phrase goes, things get worse before they get better. So where does this all leave us? Yes, storytelling and entertainment are important to us, to society, but many things in media as of late feel more like distractions rather than sources of inspiration. We don't need to learn some kind of valuable lesson from all of the things we watch and play. What we need is to find better standards of artistry. We need new aspirations of creativity. There's hardly any room for the imagination to breathe these days. Boredom is something we naturally avoid like the plague. It used to take much more effort and innovation to stave off boredom. Now the amount of immediate choices we have for distraction is daunting in itself. It's abnormal to be able to postpone reflection and discipline so easily. As hokey as it sounds, there's already so much around us that is worth admiring. It just takes a bit of effort to notice and appreciate the details. Entertainment can be pleasurable, even inspirational, but it will never be fulfilling. It is in our nature to want to make our mark on the world, to have purpose. This is what fulfills us. us. Like characters in a good story, we long to be impactful. Alright, that's gonna have to do it for this one. Shout out to the best subscriber squad in all of YouTube. I hope everyone has a wonderful day.
You think that you're in heaven, you're in hell.